Home solar panels were supposed to be one of the smartest upgrades you could make. Lower your electric bill, lock in your energy costs, increase your home value, and help the environment at the same time. But now, years later, a different story is starting to show up. Homeowners are stuck with loans that last decades, systems that don't produce what they were promised, and a growing problem that almost nobody talked about in the beginning. What happens when those panels stop working? Because the truth is, solar panels typically last a few decades, but like any technology, they eventually wear out and need to be replaced. And when millions of them start reaching the end of their life, they don't just disappear. They turn into waste. And in some cases, waste that is much harder and more expensive to deal with than anyone expected. So today we're going to break down what people were told, what actually happens, and why millions of solar panels are slowly becoming a problem that the industry didn't plan for. Promises versus reality. When solar companies started pushing hard into residential neighborhoods, the message was simple. You're overpaying for electricity. The government will help you switch. And if you act now, you can lock in savings for the next 20 to 30 years. Homeowners were told they could cut or even eliminate their electric bills. They were told about federal tax credits that would supposedly give them thousands of dollars back. Some were even told their systems would pay for themselves, or that they could make money by selling extra energy back to the grid. And then there was the biggest hook of all. No money down, or even worse, free solar. But what many people didn't realize is that free solar almost never means free. It usually means a loan, a lease, or a long-term agreement that locks you into payments for decades. And regulators like the Federal Trade Commission and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau have warned that some solar sales pitches include misleading claims about costs, savings, and financing terms. For example, that big federal tax credit. It's real, but it's not a check that just shows up in your mailbox. It's a tax credit, which means you only benefit if you have enough tax liability to use it. If you don't, that savings the salesperson built into your numbers might never actually materialize. And then there are the loans. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau has reported that dealer fees in solar loans can increase the cost of a system by 30% or more above the cash price. So while the monthly payment might look lower than your current electric bill, the total amount you end up paying over time can be much higher than you expected. So on paper, it looks like you're saving money. But in reality, you're often just trading one long-term payment for another, with more complexity and more risk. The part nobody talks about. Now here's where things get more interesting. Because even if everything works perfectly, even if you got a fair deal, even if your system produces exactly what it's supposed to, there's still one thing that almost never gets mentioned during the sales pitch. Solar panels have a lifespan. Most solar panels are designed to last around 25 to 35 years, although their energy production slowly declines over time. Over time, they slowly lose efficiency. They produce less energy each year. And eventually, they reach a point where replacing them makes more sense than keeping them. But here's the problem. The solar boom didn't happen slowly. It happened fast. Over the last decade, installations have exploded, which means a massive wave of panels is going to hit the end of their life around the same time. According to the U.S. Department of Energy, solar panel waste in the United States could approach around 1 million tons by 2030 as early solar installations begin reaching the end of their life. And globally, solar panel waste is expected to grow into the tens of millions of tons over the coming decades, representing millions to billions of panels that will eventually need to be dealt with. That part wasn't in the brochure. Are solar panels actually toxic? Now, to be fair, solar panels are not dangerous when they're sitting on your roof doing their job. According to the Environmental Protection Agency, working solar panels are generally safe during normal use because the materials inside them are sealed within the panel. But the concern starts when those panels are damaged, broken, or thrown away. Some solar panels contain small amounts of metals like lead, and certain thin film panels contain cadmium compounds. These are sealed inside the panel, which is why they're safe during use. But if the panel is crushed, improperly handled, or ends up in the wrong kind of landfill, those materials can potentially leach out over time. And because of that, some solar panels can be classified as hazardous waste depending on how they test for metal leaching after disposal. So the issue is not that solar panels are toxic while you're using them. The issue is what happens when millions of them reach the end of their life and have to be processed, recycled, or dumped somewhere. That's where things start to get messy. Why millions of panels are becoming waste. You would think that something marketed as clean energy would have a clean end-of-life process. But right now, that system is still catching up. Recycling solar panels is possible. The materials inside them, like glass, aluminum, and some metals, can be recovered. But the process is complicated and expensive. In the United States, studies cited by the Department of Energy show that recycling solar panels is still generally more expensive than disposal. And because there is no strong nationwide requirement in the US forcing companies to recycle them, the cheaper option often wins. So instead of being fully recycled, many panels are either partially processed or simply disposed of. Some manufacturers are trying to address this. Companies like First Solar have built dedicated recycling programs. But across the industry, these programs are not yet widespread enough to handle the scale of what's coming. And this is happening at the same time that parts of the industry have already faced serious problems. One example is Pink Energy, formerly known as PowerHome Solar, which filed for bankruptcy in 2022 after thousands of customer complaints and investigations by multiple state authorities, leaving customers in the dark. Situations like this highlight how quickly things can go wrong when rapid growth meets aggressive sales tactics and weak long-term planning. So now you have a system where millions of panels are being installed, but the infrastructure to deal with them at the end of their life is still incomplete. And that gap is where the problem starts to grow. The real cost to homeowners. For the average homeowner, this doesn't show up all at once. It happens slowly. First, you sign the deal because the numbers look good. The monthly payment is lower than your electric bill. The tax credit is built into the projection. Everything seems to make sense. Then, over time, reality starts to show up. Your system produces less than expected because of weather, shading, or degradation. Your utility rates change in ways you didn't anticipate. The savings don't quite match what you were shown, and you still have that fixed loan payment every month. In some cases, people end up paying for both the solar loan and a remaining electric bill, which means instead of replacing one cost, they've added another. And years down the line, when the system starts to age or fail, there's another cost waiting: maintenance, repairs, or eventually, replacement and disposal. None of that was the headline in the original pitch. The bigger picture. Now step back and look at the entire system. Solar energy itself is not the problem. It works. It's an important part of the future energy mix. And in many cases, it can provide real savings when it's done correctly. But the way it was sold to millions of people created expectations that don't always match reality. The financial structures can be confusing. The long-term performance can vary depending on location, maintenance, and system design. So what you end up with is a situation where the benefits are front-loaded and the costs are pushed into the future. And that's what makes this feel like a scam to so many homeowners. Not because solar doesn't work, but because the full picture wasn't explained up front. With all of this in mind, it's important to separate two things. Solar energy is not fake, it's not useless, and it's not going away. But the idea that it's simple, risk-free, and clean from start to finish is not entirely true. The real issue is how it was marketed, how it was financed, and how little attention was given to what happens after those panels stop working. Because for many people, the real cost of solar doesn't show up on day one. It shows up years later, in the loan that's still there, in the savings that didn't match the promise, and eventually, in the question nobody asked at the beginning. What do you do with all of this when it's no longer working? And that's why millions of panels are now slowly turning into a problem that nobody can ignore anymore. Stay informed.